A Faraday cage is an enclosure used to block electromagnetic fields. It may be formed by a continuous covering of conductive material. Faraday cages are named after the English scientist Michael Faraday, who invented them in 1836. A Faraday cage operates because an external electrical field causes electric charges within the cage's conducting material to be distributed such that they cancel the field's effect in the interior of the cage. In other words, when we create an electric field, we get negative charges on one side, positive charges on the other side, and no charges inside. They can be used to protect people and equipment against actual electric currents such as lightning strikes and electrostatic discharges, since the enclosing cage conducts current around the outside of the enclosed space and none passes through the interior. Faraday cages cannot block static or slowly varying magnetic fields, such as the Earth's magnetic field. Therefore, a compass will still work inside. But Faraday cages highlight the universal nature of charge in forming individual reference frames, with charge being an innate part of all matter. The outer charge never enters the reference frame of the cage, with time continuing as a process of energy exchange, with life continuing as normal. But in the outside reference frame of the cage, electric currents have the potential to disrupt this process. What we are seeing is the most extreme case of a reference frame being formed by the distribution of charge. Photon energy forms a movement of charge, and this is a totally universal process. Biological fluids can form a kind of Faraday cage, with the build-up and distribution of positive and negative charge across the membrane of each living cell. We have a republic of living cells with cellular processes from metabolism to communication being governed by this universal process. In our everyday life, we have photon energy cascading down from the sun, forming greater degrees of freedom for entropy or disorganization, and also forming greater degrees of freedom for the creativity and diversity of cell life. Within such a process, each individual plant forms their own reference frame, with the movement of positive and negative charge relative to their structure and growth. The same process is unfolding in flowing water, with hydrogen bonds forming and breaking, with an exchange of photon energy, with the movement of charge. Just a change in environmental temperature shows the interactive and creative nature of this process, with the atoms bonding together relative to the distribution of charge. Such a process forms the degrees of freedom needed for infinite snowflake diversity. The creative interactive nature of this process is formed by the spontaneous absorption and emission of light, with the movement of positive and negative charge. Because this process is relative to the electron probability cloud that surrounds each atom, the future is always uncertain, with each photon-electron interaction only occurring once, forming the uncertainty of the ever-changing world of our everyday life. The wave-particle duality of light is acting like the bits or zeros and ones of a computer. This forms a blank canvas for life to form its own future, relative to its position and the energy and momentum of its own actions. At the smallest scale of this process, the Planck constant of quantum mechanics represents a constant of action in the geometrical process that we see and feel as the passage of time, with the uncertainty of everyday life being represented mathematically by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. We have an uncertain future, Photon, relative to the wavelength of the light and the structure of the atoms, with the spontaneous absorption and emission of light forming an arrow of time for each reference frame. This can be seen using a Faraday cage with a timeline within the cage and a timeline outside the cage. At higher temperatures we have a phase change in matter, and the process unfolds on a much larger scale in the form of plasma. The movement of charge can cover an entire star or even a large area of interstellar space in the form of plasma. But the same universal process is at work. For watching, please subscribe and share. It will help the promotion of this theory.